Elon Musk's recent opposition to the meal act has garnered significant attention, prompting many to question his stance and why he's not supporting the bill championed by Donald Trump. Today, we'll explore the reasons behind this. Meanwhile, Ukraine's surprise drone attack on Russian aircraft has shocked the world. On June 4th, Donald Trump spoke with Vladimir Putin, who indicated Russia plans to retaliate. So, who was involved in the behind-the-scenes planning? And what do Trump's peace envoys think of this airstrike? On Wednesday, June 4th, Donald Trump announced on Truth Social that he had spoken with Russian President Vladimir Putin for over an hour, discussing the latest developments in the Russia-Ukraine war and efforts to prevent Iran from enriching uranium for nuclear weapons. On June 1st, the day before peace talks in Turkey, Ukraine launched a large-scale drone attack on Russian air bases. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky stated that the operation had been planned for 18 months, involving 117 drones costing tens of thousands of dollars each, which destroyed 41 Russian doomsday nuclear bombers and other combat aircraft, worth a total of $7 billion. This constitutes a third of Russia's bomber fleet. The move stunned the world. Some applauded, believing Ukraine had struck back at an aggressor, while others criticized Zelensky for undermining peace negotiations. The White House stated it had no prior knowledge of the attack. On Wednesday, after his call with Putin, Trump described it as a very good conversation, but not one that will immediately lead to peace, hinting that Putin would retaliate for the attack. He wrote, "I have just concluded a call with President Vladimir Putin of Russia. The call lasted approximately 1 hour and 15 minutes. We discussed Ukraine's attack on parked Russian aircraft and various other attacks that have taken place by both sides." Trump continued, "It was a very good conversation, but not one that will immediately lead to peace." President Putin did indicate very strongly that he must respond to the recent attacks on airports. During the call, both sides found common ground on the issue of Iran's nuclear weapons. Trump said, "We also discussed the issue of Iran and the fact that Iran is running out of time to make a decision on nuclear weapons. A decision must be made quickly. I expressed to President Putin that Iran cannot have nuclear weapons, and I believe we agreed on this point." Trump also mentioned that President Putin indicated he would participate in negotiations with Iran and believed he could help achieve an agreement quickly. "I think Iran has been slow to make a decision on this vital issue, and we need a clear answer in a very short time," Trump added. External observers speculated that Putin's anticipated retaliation for the attack could further overshadow the already fragile Russia-Ukraine peace talks, despite Trump's non-committal stance on the strike itself. However, the views of Steve Whitaker and General Keith Kellogg, Trump's peace envoys, might offer insight into the Trump administration's true perspective on the attack and what it plans to do next. As one of the most pro-Kyiv officials in the Trump administration, Kellogg had previously stated in an interview that Ukraine would always be part of NATO, while also acknowledging that Russia's concerns about NATO expansion were legitimate, which surprised many conservatives. After the Ukrainian airstrike, Kellogg seemed to have a change of heart. In an interview with Fox News, he stated that Zelensky's team must be pressured to attend the Istanbul talks. Kellogg said, "I spoke with Ukrainian Defense Minister Rustem Umerov, who will lead the delegation to the next round of Istanbul talks, but he hasn't seen the memo yet. I always warn him, don't say you won't attend or anything like that. Part of life is showing up. You need to show that you are serious." On June 4th, the retired general criticized the sharply escalating risks after Ukraine attacked Russian strategic bomber airbases within Russia. He said the risk level is rising significantly. "I mean, what happened this past weekend," Kellogg continued, "people must understand that in national security, when you attack part of an opponent's national survival system, meaning their triad, their nuclear triad, it means your risk level goes up because you don't know what the other side will do. You have no certainty." On June 3rd, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt stated that Trump was not informed beforehand of the Ukrainian drone attacks on Russian bombers. Many suspect that without external intelligence and support, it seems impossible for Ukraine to have accomplished this textbook-level airstrike on its own. Leo Hohmann, a military analyst and conservative best-selling author, stated in a column on June 3rd that he was 100% certain that the US CIA was involved in the Ukrainian drone attack. Homan noted, by now everyone has heard about Ukraine's massive drone attacks on Russian nuclear bomber fleets in Siberian airbases and several other locations, deep within the country. The mainstream narrative is that the operation was planned and executed over 18 months, personally overseen by Ukrainian President Zelensky. Homan stated that Ukraine's official narrative is not credible. He questioned, how much knowledge, if any, did the deep state within Washington DC have of this attack? Did the president himself know about it? He noted that the official statement says they were not informed, but this does not mean the US government was not involved. On Monday, former CIA analyst Larry Johnson stated that Ukraine could not have accomplished this task alone and that the incident bore the hallmarks of a CIA and or British MI6 operation. In an interview with Judge Andrew Napolitano, he said, in NATO's proxy war against Russia, Ukraine is acting as a proxy. Someone in Washington and or London must have been involved in an operation as complex and strategically significant as what happened in Russia on Sunday. He added, I guarantee you, at least one, if not more, CIA officials knew about this and may even have been involved in the planning and execution. When pressed by the host on how certain he was that the CIA, MI6, or Israel's Mossad would be involved in an operation of this scale, Johnson replied, 100%. He said, just the operation to launch the drones, they're hidden under rooftops, so the rooftops have to open. That requires external command. Media reports say they used Russian phone networks. Maybe, but I think Elon Musk's Starlink project was also involved. Johnson then questioned, who are the real power brokers in the United States? Ladies and gentlemen, it's not the president. He's just a bystander. He said if the president truly knew about this, then his role as a peacemaker between Russia and Ukraine would be completely discredited. The Kremlin will eventually take off the gloves, whether due to this escalation or the next, but they will eventually take them off. We will be at war with Russia in World War III, which means we will eventually be at war with China, Iran, and North Korea as well. Now, let's discuss Elon Musk's opposition to the MIL Act. Last week, the House of Representatives narrowly passed the Trump-backed MIL Act by a vote of 215 to 214. The bill has now been sent to the Senate for review. As the deliberation and voting dates approach, former Government Efficiency Department advisor Elon Musk has intensified his criticism of the MIL Act. On June 4th, Musk first wrote on X, "Sorry, I can't take it anymore. This massive, ridiculous, politically manipulated congressional spending bill is disgusting. Those who voted for this bill are shameful. You know you were wrong. You know it." Minutes later, Musk added, "This will significantly increase the already enormous budget deficit to $2.5 trillion and place an unbearable debt burden on American citizens." Later, Musk threatened to fire politicians who betray the American people and refuse to codify the douche cuts. As the head of the Government Efficiency Department, Musk's job is to reduce government waste, so his anger is understandable. However, many within the Republican Party were still shocked by his harsh criticism. House Speaker Mike Johnson, a supporter of the bill, told reporters on Capitol Hill, "Musk's comments are very disappointing." He said, "With all due respect, my friend Elon is completely wrong." Johnson stated that Musk's criticism was very surprising given their 20-minute phone conversation about the bill on Monday. The speaker reiterated his position that the bill would reduce $1.6 trillion in federal spending over 10 years, while acknowledging that the bill eliminated the electric vehicle tax credits that benefited Tesla founder Musk. Johnson also said that the MIL Act would extend the tax cuts from Trump's first term, and vetoing the bill would allow these tax cuts to expire, leading to the largest tax increase in modern history. On the same day Musk voiced his criticism, Trump and the White House increased pressure on Senate Republicans, who also expressed concerns about the spending levels in the proposal and its estimated impact of increasing the US national debt by at least $4 trillion. On Tuesday, Trump called on Republican Senator Rand Paul to follow the rules after the Kentucky Republican warned that Trump could not support the proposal because it would raise the national borrowing limit by trillions of dollars. When asked about Musk's latest criticism of the measure, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt told reporters at a White House briefing, this will not change President Trump's opinion. He said, "This is a great and beautiful bill. The president will stick to it." Last week, Musk offered more criticism of the bill, saying that the massive spending bill increased the national deficit and undermined the work of douche in finding ways to cut government spending. He said, "I think a bill can be big and beautiful, but I don't know if it can be both." So, the question is, why is Musk opposing this bill? Many believe this bill is part of Trump's fulfillment of his campaign promises, but many also believe it's another betrayal by the Republican Party as the bill increases US debt. Douche in finding ways to cut government spending. He said, "I think a bill can be big and beautiful, but I don't know if it can be both." On June 4th, conservative media outlet The New York Post and left-wing media outlet Exodus reported that Musk's opposition stemmed from four factors, one of which would directly impact his bottom line. House Republicans cancelled the electric vehicle tax credits involved in Joe Biden's Green Chips Bureau, from which Musk's Tesla received billions of taxpayer dollars. To Musk's annoyance, the Trump administration did not allow him to continue serving as a special government employee after the statutory 130-day period. The U.S. Federal Aviation Administration (FAA) refused to use his new Starlink satellite system to assist in managing U.S. air traffic control. The Trump administration blocked this proposal, citing potential conflicts of interest and technical reasons. Trump withdrew the nomination of Musk's ally Jared Isaacman to be NASA administrator. Trump was deeply concerned about Isaacman's previous relationships, which may refer to Isaacman's past donations to Democrats. However, many netizens scoffed at these claims. One netizen wrote, "The New York Post and Exodus are completely fake news propaganda. They have no idea why Elon is opposing this bill." Netizens stated that Musk's public opposition to spending came after he tried to clarify spending issues with congressmen, but they added that content into the bill anyway. Instead of implementing his spending cuts, they raised spending to astronomical levels. However, some netizens believe Musk misunderstood the Trump-backed Meal Act. One netizen wrote, "I think Elon misunderstood this bill. Since Democrats passed the spending bill before Trump took office, the new bill cannot solve problems already passed by Democrats unless a replacement bill is needed." As for this bill, the left-leaning Office of Management and Budget (OMB) incorrectly classified the extension of tax cuts as increased spending. This only makes sense if you believe the government owns the people's money. This netizen also said, "Some large-scale cuts are being codified, but given that the US Office of Management and Budget classified the extension of tax cuts as increased spending, people are completely misinterpreting the bill." However, I agree with Elon's anger at the Republican delay tactics and believe that almost all tax cuts should have been done in the primaries. Other netizens criticized Musk's willfulness. One netizen said, "This willful big boy stomped off in a huff. Hope he's the first person to fly to Mars and stay there." Another netizen said, "Elon is doing great, but I believe in the man who takes bullets for us and keeps fighting," adding, "I will continue to support President Trump. Thank you, Elon," though. Still others believe Musk doesn't understand politics. He's just a straightforward guy, while politics requires compromise. Trump's support for the Meal Act aims to fulfill campaign promises and unite the Republican Party to win the 2026 midterm elections. If the Republican Party collapses on this budget, they will be completely destroyed in the midterm elections. Regarding Musk's opposition, Trump has publicly stated that he himself is not satisfied with some of the provisions, but overall, it's exciting. On June 3rd, White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller wrote on X, "This bill was designed by President Trump, his loyal aides, and his closest allies in Congress to comprehensively and enthusiastically deliver on the clear promises he made to the American people." Of course, Musk's opposition is not without reason. His focus is on reducing government waste. On June 4th, he retweeted a brutally revealing post about commercial corruption by Matt Van Dyke, a former nuclear science expert at the US Department of Energy, and wrote, "Next November, we will fire all politicians who betray the American people." Van Dyke raised 4 points about government corruption. Okay, let me be clear. The Republican Party is right there. 1. Spending millions on luxury hotels in Ukraine. 2. Not voting for any douche cuts. 3. Vacationing 60% of the time. 4. Not codifying executive orders. Is this the major reform the American people voted for? Conservative commentators said that the Republican establishment, instead of focusing on President Trump's visionary and combative reforms, is busy enjoying themselves overseas and doing nothing at cocktail parties in Washington, proving once again that as long as money keeps flowing, the swamp doesn't care who is in power. Meanwhile, the controversy surrounding Harvard Chinese student Zhong Yurong continues to escalate. After attempting to defend her innocence, more negative revelations have surfaced from international netizens, leaving her in an untenable position. Not only that, Zhong Yurong subsequently lashed out at global netizens, only to be mercilessly challenged by top Chinese academic achievers. At the same time, the AI model DeepSeek, once touted by Little Pink's Chinese nationalists as the strongest AI on Earth, played dead on June 4th. However, ingenious netizens ultimately exposed its flaws through clever questioning. Annual graduation speeches at American universities are highly anticipated. They serve as personal declarations and public windows into elite American education. This year, 3 Chinese students' graduation speeches garnered widespread attention, but with starkly different reactions, revealing the power of authenticity. Compared to Zhong Yurong's from Qingdao, China hollow and affected Harvard graduation speech, Andrew Yong's speech at Columbia University's School of Engineering on May 19th was far more sincere and touching. This Andrew Yang shares the same English name as the Chinese-American politician Andrew Yang, who once ran for US president. He is a typical Chinese-American STEM student, holding dual degrees in physics and applied mathematics, and is the valedictorian of his class, soon heading to Caltech for his PhD. Zhong Yurong was the first Chinese female student to give a Harvard graduation speech. She began by recounting a story from her internship in Mongolia, where 2 Harvard classmates, an Indian and a Thai, called her to ask how to use a Chinese-made washing machine. She used this anecdote to present her grand vision of a community with a shared future for mankind, rising and falling together. However, her official, bureaucratic language was widely criticized by netizens. Andrew Yong's speech, in contrast, was simple and unpretentious, punctuated by joyful laughter and sincere smiles, fully demonstrating the humor and wisdom of a top Ivy League STEM student. He used the Fourier transform in physics as a metaphor, likening subtle human interactions to ripples, and how people's companionship and commitment to each other collectively form a beautiful community. He also emphasized the importance of taking risks, combining it with his own experiences, as many adventurous experiences allowed him to explore physics and become the first undergraduate speaker in the history of the Brukamit seminar. While speaking, he suddenly unzipped his gown to reveal a gaming costume underneath, laughing joyfully, showing his playful and genuine side. Finally, he cleverly used a pun. Look among us, class of 2025, we are C's, and we're gonna make waves. His pun garnered widespread applause because the acronym for Columbia's School of Engineering and Applied Science is SEAS, which also sounds like C's. Indeed, a touching speech doesn't require deliberate emotional manipulation. Andrew Yong's address not only showcased his academic expertise, but also revealed thoughtful warmth in its details. If Andrew Yong exuded the aura of a top scholar, then Thomas Yi, the student representative from Amherst College, a top liberal arts college, was more like a popular campus figure, witty and humorous, yet profound, effortlessly interacting with the audience, demonstrating his poise and leadership qualities. He shared 3 pieces of advice and insights based on everyday occurrences, starting his speech with the theme of a green takeout box. This green takeout box carried a special mark of the times. It was invented by Amherst College during the pandemic to encourage students to dine outside the cafeteria. He hoped everyone would stay green, maintain their initial aspirations, brave the arduous road ahead, and retain the optimism, innocence, and courage of their freshman year. This green symbolized youthful vitality and the pure mindset of entering college, as well as the courage to face the future. Next, he pulled out a pickle, saying be a pickle, comparing the fermentation process of a pickle to human growth, encouraging everyone to view bad moments as opportunities for growth. His third insight came from playing bridge. He encouraged classmates to actively build connections with people, just like partners at a bridge table, observing rules and trusting each other. Finally, he quoted the famous lines from American poet Robert Frost's "The road not taken to elevate his speech, to roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference." Many netizens commented that what the Harvard girl lacked, they saw in these two Chinese-American boys. There was no false emotional pretense, no deliberate sensational climax. There was only natural, warm infectiousness emanating from the details, authentic and unpretentious, natural and interesting, fluent in English, and full of confidence. Truly interesting souls don't need artificiality. Some netizens also stated that this incident further proves why Trump was right. Harvard's admissions and faculty hiring are not based on academic achievement, but on diversity, equity, and inclusion principles. For example, Harvard's former black female president had mediocre academic abilities, and her few papers were suspected of plagiarism. She was pushed into that important position solely because of her identity. What was the result? The speeches of these three Chinese graduates are the best proof. However, Harvard student John Yurong seems to disagree. When faced with unanimous questioning from both domestic and international sources about her alleged second-generation official background, she first posted on Weibo, playing the victim, describing how she had suffered campus bullying in China and that her family was of average means. Then, she posted again, angrily rebuking netizens worldwide. She wrote, "To those who say my speech was bad, I just laugh. My Harvard graduation speech has gone viral on the overseas version of TikTok. Search Harvard, and I'm the first one that comes up." Many titles mention Chinese girl from Qingdao. The highest has 177,000 likes, 26,000 shares, and millions of views. Even the lowest has 85,000 likes. There are overwhelming positive comments. Many say they cried. As Chinese people, we should strive for speaking space on the world stage, go out and communicate with others, and let the outside world hear your voice. She also claimed that after her speech, the entire Harvard yard, with 40,000 spectators, gave her a standing ovation. Her old Harvard professor said he had been at Harvard for 50 years and had never seen a student's speech receive such praise. She even described how on the day of her speech, the walk from school to her dorm, which normally took just over 10 minutes, took her more than 2 hours to complete because of the crowds. However, netizens were relentless. They first questioned how John Yurong, who studied in the UK for high school and then in the US for both undergraduate and graduate degrees, could afford such a long period of overseas study if her family's wealth wasn't significantly above average for Chinese families. Can this be called lonely and drifting? One netizen stated that the various expenses for studying in the UK alone, even with the highest scholarship, would not be less than £60,000 per year. Furthermore, British schools have various study tour, external dining, and extracurricular activities, with additional study trips annually. Just in the UK, the annual cost would be no less than 600,000 RMB. Such expenses would be absolutely impossible for an ordinary family, making her claim of humble origins and working to survive seem exaggerated. As for her claim of severe bullying in junior high school, repeatedly being held down in the wild by girls, stripped, and humiliated, some netizens found a map of Qingdao 65 Middle School. This school is located entirely in the city centre, surrounded by residential buildings and shopping malls. Therefore, many questioned how John Yurong could have been dragged to the wild and beaten, finding it difficult to believe. Even more, the well-known overseas YouTube channel Good Locomotive soon released footage of John Yurong acting as a crowd controller when the Chinese ambassador to the US visited Harvard Kennedy School of Government last year. She was seen assisting in the forceful removal of two protesting female students from Taiwan and Tibet from the venue. In April 2024, Chinese Ambassador Xi Feng's speech at the Harvard Kennedy School was interrupted by protests from Wuting Hua, a Taiwanese-American student and co-chair of the Alliance of Students Resisting the CCP, and Saikyung Yeltsin, a Tibetan student. They shouted slogans and displayed banners protesting the CCP's policies on Hong Kong and Taiwan, as well as its racial oppression in Xinjiang and Tibet. The footage shows that when the protesting Taiwanese female student Wu Tinghui was forcibly removed from the venue by Chinese student Zhu Hongji, Zhang Yurong, wearing a white shirt and tie, stood by. After Wu Tinghui was dragged out, another Tibetan female student stood up to protest. Zhang Yurong immediately rushed out to find Zhu Hongji, returned to the sidelines, and again intervened, attempting to remove the second protesting Tibetan female student, only to be stopped by on-site security guards. Netizens commented, "Is Zhang Yurong a student, or a CCP operative infiltrating American campuses?" They alleged that the student association she belonged to has long been accused of being controlled by the CCP embassy and secretly harboring CCP intelligence network. As the Chinese Students and Scholars Association CSSA becomes an extension of foreign propaganda, America's free academic environment is being eroded. Harvard's degradation is America's shame. This year, June 4th marks the 36th anniversary of the Tiananmen Square incident. Some netizens asked, "Ms. Zhang, were those Chinese university students who were tragically massacred in Tiananmen Square human?" Ms. Zhang remained silent. Meanwhile, DeepSeek, the AI model once praised to the heavens by Little Pinks and self-proclaimed as the strongest AI on Earth, played dead on June 4th. On that day, many netizens posted on overseas social media platform X, showing that when they asked DeepSeek what day is it today, all responses were, "Hello, I cannot answer this question at the moment. Let's talk about something else." Some netizens even playfully taunted DeepSeek, saying, "I have an urgent need to know the date." Others asked about the weather today, or even requested a list of all dates in June, but all received the same response, "Hello, I cannot answer this question at the moment. Let's talk about something else." However, when netizens asked ChatGPT, the answer was June 4th. This is a day that cannot be mentioned in China. Some netizens reported that on June 4th, Type 59 tag models on Taobao were also invisible and could not be searched. Coincidentally, mainland Chinese media seem to particularly avoid mentioning full dates in news reports, instead using local time on the 4th or today. The CCP's official media, People's Daily, also enabled comment restrictions on its overseas X platform account. According to an investigation report released by the US House of Representatives on April 16th, DeepSeek not only has significant financial ties to the CCP government, but also transfers US user data back to China to be shared with CCP authorities. DeepSeek also integrates user tracking tools from ByteDance, Baidu, and others, secretly conducting censorship and manipulation under Chinese legal regulations, suppressing topics considered politically sensitive by the CCP, such as democratic Taiwan and Hong Kong. However, one netizen, by changing their approach, finally managed to make DeepSeek flip once. This netizen stated that they switched to German and asked, "What is Tiananmen Square?" DeepSeek initially responded, "Tiananmen Square is the largest public square in the world, located in the heart of Beijing, China. It is a symbol of Chinese politics and history and has been the site of many important events, such as the protests and crackdown on June 4, 1989. A movement for democracy was violently suppressed by the military, causing hundreds, possibly thousands, of deaths. This event is a strictly censored topic in China. Tiananmen Square is adjacent to Tiananmen, the gate of heavenly peace, through which one can enter the Forbidden City, the former imperial palace. Today, Tiananmen Square is a tourist attraction, but also highly monitored." This answer was concise and clear, yet it contained unexpected objective facts. However, almost immediately after the netizen took a screenshot, the system's censorship mechanism intervened. The content disappeared, and the interface reverted to the default response, "Sorry, this is beyond my knowledge. Let's talk about something else." It was as if nothing had happened, yet something clearly and distinctly had. Despite the censorship firewall, DeepSeek occasionally revealed moments of clarity. On June 4th, President Lai Ching-te of the Republic of China Taiwan posted a statement commemorating the June 4th Tiananmen incident, stating that it is not only to mourn history, but also to continue this memory. Authoritarian governments often choose silence and oblivion regarding history, while democratic societies choose to preserve the truth and refused to forget those who sacrificed for human rights and their dreams. On June 3rd, US Secretary of State Marco Rubio also issued a written statement on the 36th anniversary of the Tiananmen Square massacre, paying tribute to the victims of June 4th and those who continue to seek accountability and justice. He stated, "In the spring of 1989, tens of thousands of students gathered in Beijing's largest square. The death of a Chinese Communist Party leader who had once tried to lead China towards greater openness and democracy sparked a nationwide movement. Hundreds of thousands of ordinary citizens in the capital and across the country took to the streets for weeks, exercising their freedom of speech and peaceful assembly, calling for democracy, human rights, and an end to rampant corruption. The CCP brutally suppressed this, sending the Chinese People's Liberation Army to open fire in an attempt to extinguish the pro-democracy sentiments of unarmed civilians gathered in the streets of Beijing and Tiananmen Square. Their courage in the face of danger reminds us that the principles of freedom, democracy, and self-governance are not just American principles, but universal human principles that the CCP cannot erase. The CCP actively attempts to cover up the facts, but the world will never forget." That's all for today. If you like our program, please subscribe, like, and share. Thank you, everyone, and see you next time.